you and silence any and every aspersion which Ralph Mainwaring may seek to cast upon him. Even were there any truth in these insinuations, it would be time enough, when the charges should be preferred against our client, to brazen them before the public, but since they are only the product of spleen and malignity, simply consign them to the odium and obloquy to which they are entitled." "That is right," responded two or three voices, while the reporter replied courteously, "We will certainly respect your wishes, sir, but you see the public is on the qui vive, so to speak, over this case, and it is our business to get hold of every item which we can add to the interest. You have checked us off on some rather interesting matter already, I believe." "Perhaps so," said Mr. Sutherland quietly, "but I can promise you that before long there will be developments in the case which will give you boys all the interesting matter you will need for some time, and they will be fact, not fabrication." As the result of Mr. Sutherland's prompt action, the newspapers contained no allusion to the evening's scene at the club, but even his energy and caution were powerless to prevent the spread of the affair from lip to lip. Mentioned scarcely above a whisper, the report rippled onward, the waves widening in all directions, with various alterations and additions, till it was regarded as an open secret in all circles of society. It reached young Mainwaring in his rather secluded bachelor quarters at the Murray Hill, and he bowed his head in shame that a Mainwaring should stoop to so disgraceful an exhibition of his venomous rage and hatred. It reached Harold Scott Mainwaring, and the smoldering fire in the dark eyes gleamed afresh, and the proud face grew rigid and stern. Donning overcoat and hat, he left his apartments at the Waldorf, and started forth in the direction of the club most frequented by Ralph Mainwaring and Mr. Whitney. He had gone but a short distance when he met young Mainwaring. The young men exchanged cordial greetings, and, at Harold's request, his cousin retraced his steps to accompany him. "Why are you making such a stranger of yourself, Hugh? I have scarcely seen you of late," said Harold, after a little general conversation. "Well, to be frank with you, old boy, I haven't been around so often as I would like for two reasons. For one thing, I find people generally are not inclined to regard our friendship in the same light that we do. You and I understand one another, and you don't suspect me of any flunkeyism or any ulterior motive, don't you know?" "I understand perfectly," said Harold, as his cousin paused, seeming to find some difficulty in conveying his exact meaning. "And so long as you and I do understand each other, what is the use of paying attention to outsiders? Whether we were friends or refused to recognize one another, their small talk and gossip would flow on forever. So why attempt to check it?" "I believe you are right. But that isn't all of it, don't you know? What I care most about is the governor's losing his head in the way he has lately. It's simply outrageous, the reports he has started in circulation." Hugh paused and glanced anxiously into his cousin's face, but the frank brotherly kindness which he read there reassured him. "My dear cousin," said Harold warmly, "nothing that Ralph Mainwaring can ever say or do shall make any difference between us. There are but two contingencies in this connection that I regret." "And those are what?" the young man questioned eagerly. "That he bears the name of Mainwaring, and that he is your father." "By Jove, I'm with you on that!" the other exclaimed heartily, "and I hope you'll win every point in the game. But I'm awfully cut up over what he has said and done recently. I know that he intends to carry his threats into execution, and I'm afraid he'll make it deucedly unpleasant for you, don't you know." They had reached the clubhouse, and Harold Mainwaring, as he paused on the lowest step, smiled brightly into the boyish face, regarding him with such solicitude. "I understand his intentions as well as you, and know that it would give him great delight to carry them into execution. But, my dear boy, he will never have the opportunity to even make the attempt." Young Mainwaring's face brightened. "Why, are you prepared to head him off in that direction? By Jove! I'm right glad to know it. Well, I'll be around to the Waldorf in the course of a day or two. No, much obliged, but I don't care to go into the club rooms to-night. In fact, I haven't been in there since the governor made that after-dinner speech of his. Good night." As Harold Mainwaring sauntered carelessly through the club rooms, returning the greetings of the select circle of friends which he had made, he was conscious of glances of interest and undisguised curiosity from the many with whom he had no acquaintance. No allusion was made to the subject which he well knew was in their minds, however, until meeting Mr. Chittenden, the latter drew him aside into an alcove. "I say, my dear Mainwaring, are you aware that your esteemed kinsman has you under strict surveillance?" Mainwaring smiled, though his eyes flashed. "I am aware that he has made statements to that effect, although thus far his surveillance has interfered in no way either with my duties or pleasures, nor do I apprehend that it will." "My dear fellow, it is simply preposterous! The man must be insane." "Is he here this evening?" Mainwaring inquired. "No, to tell the truth, he has not found it so very congenial here since that outbreak of his. He seldom is here now, excepting, of course, at meals. Mr. Whitney is here, however." "I came here," Harold Mainwaring replied, "with the express purpose of meeting one or the other, or both. On the whole, it would be rather better to meet Mr. Whitney." "No trouble, no unpleasant words, I hope," said the elder man anxiously. "Mr. Chittenden, when you knew me as Hugh Mainwaring's private secretary, you knew me as a gentleman. I trust I shall never be less." You are right, my boy, and I beg your pardon. But young blood is apt to be hasty, you know." A little later Harold Mainwaring strolled leisurely across the large reading room to a table where Mr. Whitney was seated. The latter, seeing him, rose to greet him, while his sensitive face flushed with momentary excitement. "Mr. Mainwaring, I am delighted to meet you. I had hoped from the friendly tone of that rather mysterious note of yours, upon your somewhat abrupt departure, that we might meet again soon, and though it is under greatly altered circumstances, I am proud to have the opportunity of congratulating you." The younger man responded courteously, and for a few moments the two chatted pleasantly upon subjects of general interest, while many pairs of eyes looked on in silent astonishment, wondering what this peculiar interview might portend. At last, after a slight pause, Harold Mainwaring remarked calmly, "Mr. Whitney, I understand that, when the coming litigation is terminated, your client intends to institute proceedings against me of a far different nature, criminal proceedings, in fact." The attorney colored and started nervously, then replied in a low tone, "Mr. Mainwaring, let us withdraw to one of the side rooms. This is rather a public place for any conversation regarding those matters." "It is none too public for me, Mr. Whitney, as I have nothing unpleasant to say towards yourself personally, and nothing which I am not perfectly willing should be heard by any and every individual in these rooms to night. You have not yet answered my inquiry, Mr. Whitney." The attorney paused for a moment, as though laboring under great excitement, then he spoke in a voice vibrating with strong emotion. "Mr. Mainwaring, regarding my client's intentions, you have in all probability been correctly informed. I believe that he has made statements at various times to that effect, and I am now so well acquainted with him that I know there is no doubt but that he will attempt to carry out what he has threatened. But, Mr. Mainwaring, I wish to say a word or two for myself. In the coming litigation over the estate, I, as Ralph Mainwaring's counsel, am bound to do my part without any reference to my own personal opinions or prejudices, and I expect to meet you and your counsel in an open fight, perhaps a bitter one. But this much I have to say. Should Ralph Mainwaring undertake to bring against you any action of the character which he has threatened," here Mr. Whitney rose to his feet and brought his hand down with a ringing blow upon the table at his side, "he will have to employ other counsel than myself, for I will have nothing whatever to do with such a case." He paused a moment, then continued, "I do not claim to understand you perfectly, Mr. Mainwaring. I will confess you have always been a mystery to me, and you are still. There are depths about you that I cannot fathom, but I do believe in your honor, your integrity, and your probity, and as for taking part in any action reflecting upon your character, or incriminating you in any respect, I never will." A roar of applause resounded through the club rooms as he concluded. When it had subsided, Harold Mainwaring replied, "Mr. Whitney, I thank you for this public expression of your confidence in me. The relations between us in the past have been pleasant, and I trust they will continue so in the future. As I stated, however, I came here to-night with no unfriendly feeling towards yourself, but to ask you to be the bearer of a message from me to your client. Ralph Mainwaring, not content with trying by every means within his power to deprive me of my right and title to the estate for years wrongfully withheld from my father and from myself, now accuses me of being the murderer of Hugh Mainwaring. I say to Ralph Mainwaring, for me, that not through what he terms my inordinate greed and ambition, but through God-given rights which no man can take from me, I will have my own, and he is powerless to prevent it or to stand in my way. But say to him that I will never touch one farthing of this property until I stand before the world free and acquitted of the most remote shadow of the murder of Hugh Mainwaring, nor until the foul and dastardly crime that stains Fair Oaks shall have been avenged." Amid the prolonged applause that followed, Harold Mainwaring left the building. End of chapter 24.